Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. Today is going to be a little bit different because I'm not going to be in the video. You may know Andy Osborne, the author of Practical Business Continuity Management. Well, he's just released his second volume of that. And I was lucky enough to be at the book launch, attend the book launch, of which, talking with Andy, we've been able to get that video from his book launch where he talks about how he writes, gives some more advice on things, and just talks about business continuity. So congratulations, Andy, on the new book. Well done. And for anyone watching, please check out my first talk with Andy, which aired on Voice America January 7th, 2021. A great chat. You'll really enjoy it. Without further ado, over to you, Andy.
Right, let's start. Well, welcome and thank you very much for joining my book launch, which is really exciting for me. I'm just looking around. We've got 20-something people at the moment, and people join all the time. 27 we're up to at the moment.
Wow.
Loads of my old pals from the business continuity world, people I haven't seen for a long time, some of you. So hello and welcome. We've got people a lot from the UK, but we've also got people from Canada, India. I think we've got somebody from the Middle East somewhere. We've got somebody from Spain. So a really international audience. And it's one of the reasons that we had it at this time of the day so that people could join from elsewhere too without getting up at silly o'clock or staying up awfully late. So great that everybody could make it. And I'm just looking around and thinking there must be several hundred years of business continuity experience on this call. So this is completely on top of my head.
Take a picture, publish it.
I'm going to ask you a question. So if on the chat function, you can tell me how many years business continuity experience in total there is on this call. And then in brackets, put how many years of business continuity experience you've got. And then while Sue's speaking in a few minutes' time, I'm going to do a quick tot up and reveal the answer. But it's quite amazing the amount of business continuity experience we've got here. Anyway, enough of this nonsense. Today, I think you'll have seen on the invitation, today's fairly low-key, fairly informal. So there's no PowerPoint, you'll be pleased to know. It's basically a chat with my mates. So we've got Sue Richardson, my publisher, who I've known for quite a long time now, actually. She'll talk to us in a minute. Just a little bit about publishing and some of the whys and wherefores and why you might consider doing it, actually. And I'm sure there are definitely people on this call that are published authors. But there might be people that are thinking about it, have got aspirations. So I think you might find Sue's brief talk quite interesting. And then I'm afraid it's me rambling for about half an hour. And really that takes the form of a Q&A session. So I'm just going to answer questions from the audience and see where we go with it. I've got a couple that people sent in advance just to kick things off. But Steve Lyth, whose name on the screen is Ben for some reason. And as I said to Sue, at least it's not Amanda as it was earlier. I think that's his weekend name, but there you go. So if you've got any questions as we go through, if you could use the chat facility to just ask those questions, and Steve is going to field those for me and butt in and stop me waffling on at times to ask me those questions, or raise a hand or something so that we can see you. And then at the end, or towards the end, we're going to have a little celebratory drinky. I know it's a school day, so drinking on a school day is not good, is it? And drinking during a school day is even worse, but there you go. So if you don't want your boss to see, because we are recording this, you might want to switch your camera off. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Sue to just tell you a little bit about what her company does, publishing company does, and how she might help you. Sue, the floor is yours.
Andy, and hello everybody. I hope, Andy, that you'll keep an eye on the waiting room just in case we need to let anyone else in. But I'm really interested to know, just like most of you, I guess, are in Andy's world. Is that right? I mean, a thumbs up or something, or bang in the chat something that tells me otherwise if you do something completely different. But I kind of imagine that what I've got here is 30 experts in this Zoom room, experts of some kind. Now, I know some people have a problem with using that word, but essentially I imagine many of you know a lot about a particular area, and looking at the hundreds of years that are appearing on the clock in terms of business continuity, then there's clearly a message there for me of who I've got, who I'm addressing, if you like. So I have had the pleasure of knowing Andy, as he suggested, for a very long time. Andy, now it was actually 2006, which feels like such a long time ago. Like, you know, kind of two major crises have happened since that particular year, and many of us have had real challenges in our businesses. But I was invited to speak at the Federation of Small Businesses. I think it was a kind of networking breakfast or something, and this young man bounced up to me afterwards. Yes, Andy, you were young. So was I, relatively. And you bounced up to me afterwards and you said, do you know, I think there's something in this book business. I was speaking about what I still speak about to this day, which is essentially why I believe that anyone in business, but particularly those in the knowledge industry, if you like, those with expertise that go out into the world and help other businesses, why a book is a great idea, a great way of building a brand, building profile, building a business. And that's what I was talking about on that day. That's what I still talk about and what I still do. And Andy, I think we've got someone in the waiting room. And I just was giving this talk, and Andy came up afterwards and said, fantastic, I think this is a great idea. I think I need to do this for my business. He had been blogging for some time, and of course in those days not everybody did that. I know a lot of people do it now, but Andy was way ahead of the curve and was blogging furiously and really enjoying the writing. And as most of you will know, his first book, Practical Business Continuity Management, which we now call Practical Business Continuity Management 1, came out about a year later. And we had great fun that year working on that book together. And that was the story, that was our story. And we've kept in touch ever since. We've actually done another book since then, Risk Management Simplified we did. And then finally last year during lockdown, Andy came and talked to me about Practical Business Continuity Management 2. And here we are today, having produced that. So that's all been great. The reason I believe that so strongly and so kind of vigorously really in the power of a book is partly because of a story that Andy told me many years ago. This book was never going to be an Amazon bestseller. Even back then. It's not that, I know, don't be hurt, Andy, but you know this is true. It's not that kind of book. It's not a book that hundreds of thousands of people are going to grab and read. It's not a J.K. Rowling. It's not a Jamie Oliver. It's not one of those. And we knew that. But we also discovered something really incredible when we did Andy's book. And that was that really within a very, very short time of him having published that book, he was getting serious business results as a result of it. And he told me a story famously many years ago, which I have dined out on ever since, which was that he literally one day picked up a call from someone who had read the book and invited Andy in. He said, we have to talk. I need your help. And Andy went in, and within a few days of that meeting, he had a very lucrative, generous contract sitting on his desk. The book had done its job. And this is what I love about the way books work. And I want to talk very briefly about what I call the 5 R's of writing and publishing the right book for your business. It's not just about a vanity thing. It's not about just putting what you know down on paper. It's about being quite strategic and creating a real business case for your book before you start. So my 5 R's begin with reach. And what I mean by reach is platform. Because you might be, I don't know, we might have some great speakers in the room here, for instance. I know it's difficult to get out there and speak in actual rooms with people at the moment, but people are more and more turning to speaking online. A lot of it is going on. And speaking is, of course, a fantastic way to get your profile raised. But you can only ever be in one room at a time. And you might have all sorts of other ways of getting messages out about your business and about who you are and what you do so well. But imagine if you had an army of mini yous marching out, making people all over the world aware. So like Andy did, he probably popped a book in the post to a few people and the phone started to ring. So it's a book can really do that for you. A book can put you in dozens of rooms at the same time. And it's also something that actually very few other marketing tools, if you like, you can sell it, and it can be available globally. Amazon is now in 19 countries and growing. So from whenever it was, Andy, a week ago or something, Andy's presence is there in 19 countries where it wasn't before. So it's something to consider. My second R is respect. And what I mean by that is it's about credibility. So even if people don't ever get around to reading your book, the fact that you're a published author means that people will think better of you because you've written it. I mean, let's face it, if you have written a book about something, you probably know something about it. And it gives that impression to people, no matter what they know about anything, they know that you must be a person who knows something about that field. So just by writing it, you gain credibility. People who write and publish books really stand out from the crowd because not very many people do it, quite frankly. So I don't know if many of you know, or any of you know, one of my favorite business books of all time was Seth Godin's Purple Cow. Like seeing any nods there, any marketing bods in here who know this? This has been around for nearly as long as I've known Andy, actually. It's a wonderful book, and it's Purple Cow is all about how to make your business remarkable. And that's what a book can do for you. It can really make you stand out from the crowd and be a purple cow. So that's my few words on respect. My third R is reputation. You could also call this one referral. It's about having the opportunity for people to talk about you because you have a book. They may not even know you very well, but they may have read your book and they will talk about you with other people and say, do you know what? There's this guy, this person over here has read, has written this incredible book. It's a great, useful tool for other people to pass your name around and your knowledge around. So that's reputation or referral. My fourth one is relationship. And this is really the thing that we all need these days, especially in the kind of knowledge, the expert industry, if you like, which is following. I think creating the right book with your own authentic voice is going to help bring you closer to so many more people. So because of the respect factor, people will look up to you, but you've also got the opportunity in your book to reach right into people's own hearts and minds. I have been doing a series of interviews for our, we're relaunching our brand, The Right Book Company, and we've got webinars and all sorts of stuff lined up. And I did a wonderful interview with Paul McGee. I don't know if any of you know Paul, but Paul is the sumo guy, and has become a hugely well-known and a very highly successful author and speaker. And one thing he said to me, which I absolutely loved, was that he encourages everyone who reads his books, any single person at all out there, he encourages them to get in touch with him and literally to contact him directly. And as a result of doing that, Paul has built the most incredible following. And that in turn has helped him write book after book after book, and every single one is a bestseller. So it's a lovely kind of virtuous circle of getting people in. I said to her, it's so extraordinary. You're really quite famous now. How can you, literally talk to everybody? And he said, believe me, Sue, there have been times when I've thought, can I really spare the time to have this conversation? And I've gone ahead and I've done it, and it always pays off. Being directly in contact with your customers, leaving them free to really feel open to talking about you to other people and passing it on. So that's all good. And my very final the final right reason to publish a book is about reflection. This really is something that I think Andy will probably speak to a little bit in a minute, which is really about how a book really helps you develop your own thinking. There's a lovely quote from Flannery O'Connor, who said, I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say. And I love that. I think the process of writing, I'm a writer myself as well as a publisher. I know that I discover what I'm thinking by doing the process of writing. It helps me develop my thought. And as a bit of a thought leader, a bit of an expert, a bit of a person who goes out there and hopes to educate people around publishing, that's really useful for me because it keeps me exploring, it keeps me looking at knowledge, it keeps me researching, it keeps me fresh. And that's all really another great reason why you might consider writing and publishing a book. So I hope you'll join Andy on his journey to this exciting route to developing a great brand, a great profile, and lots of lovely awareness of all the wonderful work that you're doing out there. Thank you. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Sue. Has anybody got any questions for Sue before I start waffling?
Sue, yeah, it's Julie Goddard here. Hi. Is there how much upfront cost is there involved in writing a book? If
Julie,
any?
I'm trying to find you so I can
I'm
see
here.
you. Wave at me. Hello. Hi, Julie. Now, cost is a very difficult question because it's a little bit like how long is a piece of string. It depends on the way you publish. It depends on what support you need. It depends on all sorts of different factors, Julie. So you can self-publish reasonably cheaply, but you need to be sure that you know what you're doing. Having done 3 books, Andy's effectively gone down a self-publishing route with us. We've given him the support that he needs. He's managed to keep the costs reasonably low. But if you need more support, like, heavy editing, or you need distribution to the book trade and that kind of stuff beyond Amazon, then there are going to be added costs to it. So, it is a bit of sorry to kind of sound as if I'm copping out there, but I'd be so happy to have an individual chat with you if you wish. Actually, perhaps I could pop my is that all right, Andy? If I just pop my details in the chat box, do feel free to reach out and contact me. You can go onto our website actually and book onto our webinar, for instance, and that might be you might enjoy that. But we can have a chat, whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sue? No, in which case, thank you very much for that, Sue. Before I start, I've seen a few people join since we kicked off. You might not have heard me say at the start that we were having a bit of a quiz to guess how many years of business continuity experience there are on this call. And so far, I've got up to 372 years. But I've seen that Lyndon's joined, so that's probably added another 30 or 40 years to that. So those of you that weren't here at the start and haven't posted yet, if you could let me know how many years business continuity experience you've got, and what you think the total therefore might be when everybody else has joined in, then that'd be really interesting. I reckon we're getting it at past 400 years, which is quite staggering, really.
Fantastic. So
anyway, while you do that, just to pick up on a couple of things that Sue said. I met Sue back in 2006. I received a letter from the Federation of Small Businesses for one of their networking meetings, and I didn't go to many, to be honest, because a lot of them weren't really that much of that much interest to me. But this one started by saying, do you think you've got a book in you? Yes. Have you started to write it several times and never finished it? Yes. Would you like to make your book a reality? Yes. so come along and listen to Sue. So I went along and listened to what Sue had to say and had a chat with her afterwards. And Sue had taken along a number of examples of the books that she'd published with various authors, various topics. I remember one really weighty tome that had been written by a solicitor. But the one that really caught my attention was a little thin book of hints and tips. I can't even remember what the subject was, to be honest. But I thought that's when I had that light bulb moment, because prior to 2006, I'd been writing, and some of you may even have subscribed to these from way back when. I'd been writing a tip of the month, a business continuity tip of the month for my clients and other interested parties. And I saw this hints and tips book and I thought I could do that. And I naively thought, I've got a stock of tips that I can just mash together and we've got a book, haven't we? Well, it was a bit more involved than that, but that's how it all started, really, with the first version of Practical Business Continuity Management. Yeah, I won't go on too much about that. That's how it started. I did intend to write volume 2 fairly shortly after that. And it's actually taken me 13 years to get round to it, but ho-hum, that's how it goes sometimes, isn't it? Where was I going to go with this? Yeah, it took me 13 years because the first book was relatively successful in terms of I got lots of positive feedback. And because I'm lazy, we decided to call the second volume Practical Business Continuity Management 2 and keep a very similar format. But those of you that have read 1 will know that it's a collection of hints, tips, and good ideas that I've picked up along the way and are therefore sharing with people. Which kind of answers the first question. So I was going to introduce it by saying I've got a couple of questions that were sent to me in advance. And the first one was how did Practical Business Continuity Management 2 come about, which we've kind of answered, really. The second one that came in advance was how do you get the ideas for your tips? I'm going to paraphrase the quote that Sue gave us and say that I have no idea what I'm talking about until I write it down. And so some of those ideas come from working with clients, working with fellow consultants and associates. We pick up ideas, we try things that work, and therefore we kind of pass those on to people. I get ideas from articles that I read, from other books, from talking to people. So they come from a variety of sources, really. But all of the tips in both books actually are things that I or my clients have tried and have had some success with. And that's why we decided to share them with people. So that's the first 2 questions I had in advance of the session. I'm kind of hoping we've got some more. Otherwise, it might turn into a very short meeting. Steve, have you got anything coming?
I've had one come direct to me, which is, do you have a particular writing process?
A particular writing process?
Yes.
I'd love to say that I religiously sit down at 4 o'clock every afternoon and write for 2 hours, but I can't because it's not true. My writing process is very ad hoc, I suppose, really. I make notes all the time of ideas, so ideas for tips, for blogs, for another book, for presentations and articles and various other things. And I kind of have an online folder of just stuff that I then go back to from time to time and look at. I guess it's fair to say that a lot of my writing in the past has been when I've been sat in a hotel on my own, Billy no mates, because I've been away on business somewhere and filling the time rather than sitting and watching soap operas and whatever else. I've tended to sit and write stuff. So that's how it happens, really. I get some ideas, I make a note of them, and then I might not come back to them for months. But then something will spark a further idea, and I might put 2 together, and that's how the tips come about, really.
Andy, what do you think you'll be writing about in 5 years' time, given what's happened in the last 12 months for the world and business continuity?
That is a very interesting question.
Oh, come on. If you was to hazard a guess, obviously, I realise you haven't got a crystal ball.
Yeah, I haven't got a clue.
The way you walk.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm on about until I write it down. I suspect some of it will be a little bit historical. It'll be stuff that we've learned as a result of what we've been through recently. Interestingly, when I mooted the book with Sue, because the COVID thing did give me an opportunity to finish it. Really, I'd been as I said, I collect ideas and ideas for tips and whatever else, and so I'd been putting together notes for a long time actually for Practical BCM 2, and it was only really when the first lockdown happened that I suddenly had the time and space to follow up on some of this stuff that had been on the I'll do that sometime when I get time for it pile. But when I had a conversation with Sue about it, and we talked about whether to include any COVID specific tips, we actually decided not to, partly because we didn't want to date the book. I guess we thought the situation might be over with a lot quicker than it turned out that it has been, or isn't yet. And so we deliberately didn't focus on the COVID situation. And you'll notice that the vast majority of the tips in the book don't focus on a particular scenario. They're more to do with the issues, I suppose, that you might have to deal with, both in planning for and responding to events and situations. So that's a long-winded way of saying I have no idea what I'll be writing about in 5 years' time. I have got one idea, actually, which is completely unrelated to business continuity management. I like to think I can write a decent story. My dad tells a fantastic story, especially when he's had a couple of drinks. And I've been sneakily recording him over the past couple of years. And one of the things I do want to write about is some of his life history, because some of it is fascinating, some of it's hilarious, and I just hope I can do it justice when I get round to it. So I'll be coming back to you in 5-10 years' time and trying to flog that to you as well.
Andy, perhaps elaborating a bit on the future. What I tend to notice that I work for a cybersecurity and information security company doing business continuity, and actually COVID actually made life quite difficult for me, because I was working at a governmental client, and just preparing business continuity stuff. And then after 3 months, after we just prepared, COVID hit, and I advised the management to start a crisis organization and get to grips with it, which was a fortunate call, actually. And so that has kept me busy during this year. And but working for the government company, and also looking from the perspective from my cybersecurity colleagues, the debate I've got these days is about where information security, especially from ISO 27001, actually connects more and more with business continuity. Because the opinion I usually voice towards management is that modern companies are basically factories full of data and systems, and we use all that interconnectedness to make our processes going, and make them efficient, make them quick, and make them financially viable, and get products or services out of the door. So any hiccup in terms of information security has a direct effect on business continuity, not only IT continuity, but especially, say, the critical processes. And the more and more I think about this, the more difficulty I've got to gel the BCM norm 22301 with 27001, because I think they're getting more and more connected, and people are afraid of that connection, because they think it's IT, it's technique, it's software, you need geeks to work on that, whilst I think you need practical, pragmatic people thinking about the impact on processes. So that's a long story, but what's your perspective on this?
Well, I think that's given me an idea. No, I think it's an important point, actually, and you'll notice that I have written about topics related to business continuity, things like crisis media related issues, and some of the people issues that I think we are only really recently getting to grips with, and many business continuity people have kind of ignored for quite a long time. So I think it's a very good point, and I think probably Practical BCM 3 might include a large chapter on tying up cyber and info security with crisis management and business continuity and all those other disciplines. I guess we're moving into the realms of resilience, aren't we? Which is a whole new topic of conversation that could take us several hours to discuss. But Yeah, definitely. I'll put that in my notebook,
Yeah.
and hold that thought for later.
Yeah, but welcome. Think of the term organization resilience. Perhaps the business continuity in itself is basically a step in time we need to take to move forward to having more resilient organizations, more awareness, making a continuity a everyday fact of life.
Yeah.
If you talk to management, it's about finance, it's about staffing, it's about facilities, which I discuss on the normal management team meetings. And now risk management, continuity issues are now creeping up on their agenda as well on a day-to-day basis. So perhaps we are going to be outdated if we only do business continuity.
I think you're right. Yeah. I tell you what, let's have a proper conversation about this offline, because we could spend hours talking about this subject, couldn't we? But I think, yeah, again, picking up on one of the things that you said there, I think making business continuity and cyber and risk management and all of those good things more normal life activities, I think, is something I'm really keen on, and that's one of the reasons that these books came about, because it's not all about process and standards and documents. It's about things that help your business continuity, cybersecurity, information security program to be successful and to work in the real world. So that's kind of what I'm interested in.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Damon, hello.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I think a question has been typed in. Similar question has been typed by another Andy. So maybe I got chance before him. I recently picked up ISO 22316, organizational resilience, and that has become my passion in the last 3 months or so. So if you have any views around that, then I'll be happy to know. Okay.
Again, I think we'll maybe have an offline conversation. I don't want to upset those of you that are big into standards. How do I put this? I can get a little bit cynical about standards from time to time, particularly 22301, which is one that I know, and I won't use the word love, but know quite well. And the reason is that I've experienced on several occasions organizations that have a nice shiny certificate on the wall saying they've got certification to 22301 or 27001 or whatever, particularly 22301. But actually, do they have a robust fit for purpose business continuity capability sitting behind that? And on at least 3 occasions, my answer to that question will be no. They've got the certificate that says they've got certification, but they haven't necessarily got a robust capability. And it's the capability thing that I'm really interested in working with my clients. That's not to say that we should ignore standards. I'm not saying that at all. What I am suggesting is that sometimes I think we can get too hung up on standards for standards' sake, and that's why I get a little bit cynical. But let's have a conversation.
I think you're right there, Andy. I mean, I've come across organisations where that's the only thing they're interested in is ticking a standards box, which is always a warning sign, isn't it, that people don't really understand what BC is about if they think it's only about pieces of paper. I'm not saying, as you say, there isn't a place for it because it sets a benchmark, but if their whole thing is about ticking a standards box for an auditor, then they've probably completely misunderstood the essence of what BC's around about, really. Yeah. Which is, I would say, it's business continuity isn't about what you write down, it's about what you do on the day when something happens.
Absolutely.
Really.
Yeah. David, I'm going to come to you in just a moment because I saw Andy put his hand up a moment ago. Yes, Andy.
Yeah, well, it was to follow up that question, actually, and I know you might not want to go there, and it does take a long time to answer, but with the forthcoming operational resilience regulations in the UK financial sector, America is hot on the heels because the Fed have announced some operational resilience regulations as well for their regulated entities. So notwithstanding the standards argument, but the move towards where business continuity fits into operational resilience and what organizational resilience means, despite the fact that it might be your 4th or 5th book. What's your take? What's your take on that as we sit today in 2021 in the middle of COVID?
Oh wow! Actually, I had a conversation with Julie just the other day about this, and the gist of the conversation was that, yeah, resilience is the hot topic, isn't it, at the moment? there is a very real danger that the general bandwagon jumping with people trying to rebadge business continuity as resilience is going to backfire, because resilience is not just about business continuity, is it? As we probably all appreciate, it's about a whole raft of other things. It's about cyber and risk management and information security management and physical security and crisis management and all sorts of other things that sort of wrap into that banner of resilience. And I do see quite a lot of people. In fact, I've rather shamelessly been building up my LinkedIn following over the past few weeks and months. And there are an awful lot of people on there with resilience job titles now that used to be business continuity people. Now, if they've expanded their portfolio and their roles into proper resilience, which encompasses all of those things, absolutely fine. But I do think that there is a danger that if we just try to rebadge business continuity as resilience, we're going to get found out. So that's, again, it's a topic for a whole new conversation, which I think I might set up actually separate to this one, and we'll have a good old chinwag about resilience and standards and what we think of it.
I think the first job, Andy, is let's decide what resilience actually is in reality.
Yes.
I don't, that's the problem, isn't it, that we talked about. No one's really agreed on a definition. That if you ask 20 different people, you get 20 different answers.
Yeah.
You could probably say the same about business continuity, to be fair.
Yeah.
And we've got definitions in the Good Practice Guide and ISO and then, but they're not necessarily all the same.
Okay, David.
Andy, I've got another quick question. Is how do I get a signed copy of your new book?
Oh, well, I'm sure we can come to some arrangement. Yeah, watch this space. We'll talk about that towards the end.
Okay.
Yeah. David, you've had your hand up for a long time, and then I'm going to come to Andy Smith, who I haven't spoken to for a long time.
Yeah, Andy, hi. It'd be interesting. Another question, perhaps, just to put up is everybody who has got involved in business continuity through speaking to Andy Osborne in the first place. As, Andy's been the influencer, and I certainly am, and got me in lots of the people in that position. For me, I'm badly dyslexic, and so the big thing always was particularly getting stuff done like his tips of the month. So actually, initially, I bought tips of the month off Andy, and this went on for a while because I wanted to do something so that we got and actually once we had broke the golden goose on this one and launched our own one, actually the day we put our first one up, an order arrived, and it was just like that. So, and from then on, actually, Chris and I have alternately between us been doing one each, and it's great, But I just, this is just really to thank you for all you've done for the industry, and it's really been a wonderful thing, and we're looking forward to the next 20-year party. And picking up on what Sue said, I mean, there are consultants here, and obviously publishing a book can be great for consultants, but I don't think it's necessarily just about consultants. I think in any industry that you're in, if you want to raise your profile, writing a book and publishing a book is a really good way to do that. So think about it seriously, I would suggest. Andy, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, how the devil, nice to see you again.
You too.
It's more around the sort of the ongoing. We're 12 months into the COVID response within the world I'm working, certainly now. And it's interesting that resilience is spoken around, because I don't hear too much around this differential. Well, certainly around lessons identified, and then we morph that into lessons learned, and we'll go through at the end of it we'll have a great big debrief. But considering we had swine flu 10 years ago, we've seen sort of various issues around discussions around readiness or preparedness nationally. It's how we drive this, the debriefing process on a regular basis, how we capture lessons, how we identify them, but how we then morph them into that learning and then re-embed them. Because I've colleagues who are around a raft of different organisations, we're having the same discussions that we had sort of 10, 11 years ago when swine flu landed, as I'm sure that we'll have had at different organisations. And it's this thing that business continuity is there for all days, not just for that sort of, that big catastrophic. It'll underpin or business interruption. It should be something that you cling to throughout. And, you know, if you make it behavioural and good practice, then people are more likely to revert to it in times of disruption, crisis, you know, anywhere along that spectrum.
Absolutely, yeah. And a couple of tips I've written recently, actually, the tips of the month. One was about the fact that lessons learned aren't actually lessons learned unless you do something about it. Lessons recorded are one thing, but lessons learned and actually acted upon are quite a different thing. And I've been speaking to various clients about the fact that we shouldn't neglect our post-incident reviews, for want of a better expression. And the last tip I wrote was about that. Actually, it was about maybe calling it post-incident review isn't the best idea, because the incident isn't over yet, is it? And so
No.
I've certainly spoken to some people that have said, well, we'll do a review when it's all over and the dust settled and we can look back properly. Well, it's been a year now, and it could be another 6 months, another year, couldn't it? At what point do you bite the bullet and say, we should really look back at what we did in the early stages, how we reacted back in March last year, and maybe call it an after-action review or a mid-action review, whatever we call it. We should make sure that we do it, because I think for many of us, most of us, I would contend, have got lessons that we can learn from what went well, what didn't go quite so well. And if we don't record those and act upon them, I think we're missing a big trick. I think COVID's been a bit of a double-edged sword, hasn't it, for the business continuity industry? It's kind of raised the profile massively in quite a short time. But then there's the other opinion that, well, we've dealt with it, haven't we? We've coped with it. Everybody's working from home. It's all fine. And in fact, when it's all over, we'll still continue to work from home and we won't bother with offices anymore. And we're kind of missing some of those subtleties and the fact that, you know, actually quite a few people would have been affected by the events of the past year. Yes, it's proven our work from home strategies, so people like me can stop banging on about, well, you should test it properly then, shouldn't you? But there are all sorts of other associated issues that I think we need to make sure that we address. So I would urge everybody, I'm sure you've all thought about it already, in doing some sort of post-action reviews if you haven't done so already. I think it's a really, really important thing to do.
It is. I think the other thing is, Andy, as well, and I found this not just with COVID, not with just this incident where we're having to constantly review as we're going along and learn lessons, but when you embed in business continuity, it's sometimes possible as well to identify areas of improvement that are just part of normal business as usual, that have got nothing to do with BC, but because you're unraveling and unwinding the processes to understand how they work, to build in resilience, sometimes you uncover things like inefficiencies or poor practice or duplication of effort that have sat there buried for a long time and no one's picked them up. And all of a sudden, you as a BC person, just by the nature of process mapping effectively, have uncovered problems that have been there all along. And so I think one thing BC practitioners should do is make it clear they can add value, not just in a business continuity context, but in other contexts where they uncover things that have not potentially been done very efficiently or very well. And I think that's really important. And I think, you know, a good BC practitioner would pick that up. I don't know what you think about that, Andy.
Yeah, definitely. I agree entirely. Yeah, certainly. I mean, how long have we been doing this now? Best part of 30 years. Certainly, we've picked up things within organisations and said, well, why are you doing it that way?
Yeah.
And sometimes it needs somebody, not necessarily external, but somebody that's not embedded in the detailed day-to-day process to take a look at it and say, actually, do you realise that you could do this better, more efficiently, more resiliently, or whatever? So there's lots of opportunities, absolutely. And I think as business continuity practitioners, we should make sure that we highlight those things, because I think we can get bogged down in the business continuity stuff and forget to mention that, you know, some of these things actually might benefit the business, the organisation in other ways, as well as from a business continuity point of view.
Yeah, and it also avoids this thing that some of you may have come across, where people think that a BC practitioner or a manager or a process is just something, a big red button you hit on the side of your desk when something goes wrong. And actually it should be very proactive and strategic, and that's one of the ways where it can be. So in other words, BC is adding value the whole of the time, not just when there's an incident about to kick off or when you're about to have an exercise. It's business continuities for life, not just for COVID, as it were.
Indeed, yeah. I've just noticed a question I'm going to pick up on because it's obviously from maybe an aspiring author. It says, what's your best tip for aspiring writers? And actually, the one I'm going to say is one that Sue gave me quite a lot of years ago, actually, and that was just write, because I'm guilty of editing as I'm writing. And so I'm thinking about grammar and punctuation and spelling and getting the correct wording. And sometimes you just need to get it down. I can't remember, Sue will probably correct me. It might have been somebody like Ernest Hemingway that said something like, most of writing is rewriting, something like that. And the point that he made was that if you're going to do this properly, what you write down the first iteration isn't going to be the finished article. And we probably all find this when we're writing articles and reports and various other things, that there's a lot of reworking goes into this process. So sometimes it's good to just get it down on paper in some form so you don't forget it, because quite often I'll start down a track, end up editing things and putting the commas and the semicolons in the right places, and then think, oh, where was it going with this? So just write would be my tip. Do we have any other questions? Steve, anything on your list?
No, I've got nothing on here.
Okay, in which case then, with 10 minutes to go, I just want to thank you again for coming. I do appreciate it. It's been a really interesting conversation. I want to make you a very special once only one-time offer. It's only going to be available for a week. Practical Business Continuity Management 2, which is what we're here to discuss, I think. Recommended retail price is $14.99. However, for the next 7 days, for the people that have attended the launch, it will be available if you purchase from Acumen's website, so the shop part of our website, because I can't do it on Amazon. But I'm offering it to you for £12, including free postage. So what you'll need to do to take advantage of that, I'm going to post this on the chat. You'll see when you check out on the shop site that there's a coupon code box, and if you put this coupon code in, it'll take the postage away and reduce the price for you. So I'm just going
Will they be signed though, Andy?
If you want me to sign one for you, I can do
clearly
that. Yes.
I mean, is that going to cost extra though?
Here's an idea.
When you're on the One Show promoting it, Andy.
I'm just going
and do we get hardback or is it softback?
They're all paperback. They're paperback. Yeah, sorry. I could PVA it for you.
Well, there you go.
I just
can you get the first one?
Can you get the first one? Yes, indeed, that's still available. Yeah, that's on the shop site as well.
Awesome.
And those are the online booksellers you can get it from as well. In fact, if you want a Kindle version, you can get it from them.
I'm going to make it required reading from my team.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Joking apart, yeah, I mean, if you enjoy it, I would really appreciate it if you would post a review on Amazon for me, because that's quite important for me. But also tell your mates, tell your friends, tell your colleagues, associates, distant relatives, anybody else. Make a great Valentine present.
Yeah.
Okay, in which case, let's get to the important bit, shall we? Because I did say in my invitation that even though it's a school day and even though it's the middle of the afternoon, it would be nice if we'd have done this in person. I'd almost certainly have bought a couple of bottles of cheap fizz and a packet of Pringles and had a bit of a celebratory drink with everybody. So I'm hoping that at least some of you have brought along something fizzy or refreshing to drink.
Andy.
So
Andy,
Andy, is it over to me? Andy, is that over?
It is over. Yes, back to Sue.
So Andy, to wet the book's head, congratulations on Practical Continuity Business Continuity Management 2. Well done, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you,
Cheers.
everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, Andy.
Well done, Andy.
Well done, boy.
Good work.
If anybody
Cheers.
wants to
Andy.
hang around for a
Cheers.
natter, that's absolutely fine. You know, don't feel that you have to rush off. Actually, we finished early. That's most unlike me, isn't it? Normally go on for hours.
It is probably a learning curve now with the management cycle in place. You've learned to be more concise, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. Let's take some more questions if anybody's got any.
You've got one, Andy, and that's what's the code, coupon code.
It should be on the chat. Can you see the chat?
Oh, it's not showing, Andy.
No.
Okay.
It should. Did you send it to everyone, Andy? Maybe
I did send it to every. Oh no!
in waiting room. Everyone in the waiting room. You need to just cut and paste it and do it again.
Yeah. Well, how do I get rid of the waiting room bit? Oh, everyone in meeting.
Yeah, everyone in meeting,
Yeah.
not the
It's
waiting
fantastic watching an expert at work, isn't it?
The wonders of modern technology, eh?
room.
Oh yes, we've got to do the total years in business continuity as well.
Oh, yes!
So let's have a quick whiz back.
Because if you added after you did your estimate,
Um, 20.
Do you need a few more fingers to help count on?
I do. And some toes. And some toes.
You are counting out loud.
just
so you know.
just so you know.
You're not doing it in your head.
I reckon we've got to add on 144 years to that original total.
So it's 500.
516.
Wow. That
Wow.
is so cool. Somebody guessed that. There was somebody right at the beginning who guessed 500.
Oh, hang on. No, we've got another 22 and another 13.
Oh, Lord, it's going up.
529, 531, 551. Wow. 551 years business continuity experience. Who's still doing it the same way that you were doing it 30 years ago?
Me. It's all
Great
the same.
question.
It's different issues.
Yeah.
Well, actually, a lot of the same issues as well.
Yeah, it's still a lot of very similar. At the end of the day, it's about identifying what's important, how important, why it's important, and what you're going to do about it, isn't it?
It's very simple, really, isn't it?
When's your next blog out then, Andy?
That's a good question. Yeah, I need to start writing some blogs. I haven't done any for a while. I posted a couple of from the archives recently, but I've got some ideas. I've got a tip of the month to write in the next few days, and then we'll follow that up with a blog.
Yeah.
You can probably take some inspiration from our meeting, having to deal with 20 or 30 odd participants from all over the world, trying to get them aligned in your story. So there should be something in there about controlling stuff or letting things go. And
Definitely a blog in this, yeah.
Oh, that's boring. I want to hear about chainsaws and, and injuries. Yeah.
Andy, don't forget to do a screenshot of us all so we can all appear on your blog post.
I'll do it now.
We can't get you all on there because there are so many.
that's
We've got
true.
2
Not possible
pages.
to do no.
Do
Just do 2. Just do
For,
a screenshot of one and then
Photoshop helps.
Do you want me to do
Photoshop
that,
helps.
Andy? Or
Yes, please, if you would, Sue. Yeah, it'll save me.
Anybody, if anybody's able to turn their video on, and that's brilliant. Some of you are just hiding a little bit, but if anybody's there and they can turn their video on, marvelous. And then we'll do a picture in a minute.
That would be excellent. Yeah, that would be excellent.
Andy, can we have you or not?
Well,
Yeah, there's an Andy. What about Andy? The other Andy Smith.
Andy Smith.
Can we have you or not?
I'm just tied up with something at the moment. Apologies.
Don't you worry. You're fine. We just thought we'd
Thank
check
you.
you out.
Thank you.
All right, we'll do a screenshot of this page. Oh, that wasn't the right one. Hang on a minute.
Hooray!
Get me buttons right.
yes, delete all files, yes.
You've been
There's
lurking.
one. I'll tell you what, I'm going to do that again, actually, because I'm going to do it a bit nicer. Right.
Nicer.
Nicer. Right, that's that one. And
While
then we've
Sue's
got-
doing that, I'm just going to tell you that Sue is responsible for my blogs. It's Sue's fault. Because many years ago, when we were publicising books, Sue said, you've got to get into this new social media stuff. You need to be tweeting and Facebooking and blogging. And so I did a bit of tweeting and thought, it is a bit of a strange world, isn't it? Couldn't really get to grips with it. I still do it. I'm still anti-Facebook. But I did start blogging. But when I looked around at the some of the existing blogs, I thought I really can't bring myself to write about why a business impact analysis is or isn't important and how you do a risk assessment and blah, blah, blah. And that's why I just write some old nonsense about something that's happened to me and make sometimes a very tenuous link to business continuity.
And that's why I said you were blogging ahead of your time. You may not have called it blogging, but that's what you were doing. Definitely.
So do you have inspiration for your blogs in the small hours of the morning, Andy? Where does it come from then?
Oh, all over the place. I mean, you don't want to know what goes on in my head sometimes. Like the tips, they come from lots of different directions. A lot of it is just stuff that happens, either in my business or private life. I don't know whether you've seen any of the Ramblings of a Traveling Consultant blogs. Those are just things that have happened while I've been out and about, meeting clients and staying in hotels and whatever else, going around the world. There's the chainsaw ones. Yeah, chainsaws and chickens. And often, usually actually, I don't have a particular theme. Something just sort of comes to mind and I make a note of it. And then something else pops into my strange warped brain and I put the two things together and it comes out as a little story. And I think the only one that I sort of wrote, I didn't write it to order as such, but one of my sons, when it was a few years ago now, he gave me a title and I ended up using the title for because I published a compilation of blogs at one point, which I called Ski Boots and Celery. And he gave me that title because it's two of the things that I hate the most in life. I call celery the devil's food and ski boots are the devil's footwear. And so I wrote about that and it kind of stuck. And it became the working title when I was putting this compendium together and it stayed really. So where do I get the ideas from? Who knows? Who knows?
And most of the ideas, new ideas come to me when I'm sitting in the washroom. By the time I'm out, it's gone out of the mind.
Very delicately put, don't
Great.
Oh dear. Yeah, but if you've got any ideas for blogs or tips and want me to use them, then feel free. Guest bloggers and guest tippers are always welcome.
I think the subject of resilience, Andy, as we've been talking about here and when we were chatting, is a big one, isn't it?
That's massive, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you're in danger whenever you publish anything like that, you're in danger of opening a can of worms because there'll be loads of people who've got an opinion on it. But it's definitely something that's a hot topic to talk about, isn't it now, especially in the light of COVID and what we've learned.
Well, I have to say that COVID basically, in our crisis team, we're now more than half year trying to manage the exhaustion, mental exhaustion on staff. So, and the interesting thing I think is that initially it started off. We were looking at loss of staff, therefore loss of production, and loss of. But it turned out to be a loss of facilities because we all had to leave our facilities to work from home. And then other effects crept in all the time. And so we're now in our crisis team basically now discussing how can we give support to our staff and to make sure that they see it as a marathon instead of a sprint. Because initially, when COVID started, we thought, well, within a few months we'll probably get over it. So we need to just roll up our sleeves and we'll go for a sprint for a few months. And then summer came, and then the second wave came and variants came and suddenly it turned out to be a marathon. So you need to adapt your shoes and your clothing and your mental mindset and try to just keep ticking over. And our management has now said, well, we accept a certain a certain amount of loss, a continuous loss. So, for example, 6 hours of work at home, we see it as 8 hours on a normal day, because we understand that people have children at home which need to school, and that the pressures are much higher than they used to be in normal life. So I think that's the main challenge now in this time, and to see whether we can slowly recover from COVID, literally.
Yeah, and I think picking up on one of the things I said earlier, that it's very easy, isn't it, to say, well, we've all just worked from home, it's been fine, we've survived, we've done it. There's a whole raft of issues associated with that home working thing, like, you know, having to do it while you're trying to homeschool or look after relatives or whatever it happens to be. I think, you know, I speak to people who say, well, I'm working from home, but I haven't got the luxury of an office at home. I'm in my office at home. So we've got, you know, desks and printers and PCs and everything else you would expect in a little office. So it's fine for me. I've been doing it for 20 years now, but I've spoken to people whose home working consists of them sitting on their bed with a laptop on their lap, because there's 3 of them sharing a small flat with one lounge and a bedroom each. And that must be incredibly difficult to do.
I think, so as well, Andy, I think we're going to have pandemic planning assumption in reverse. I think that, you know, if you're as old as me, which I think safe to say there's a fair few looking at the experience on here, but, you know, when we started looking at pandemic planning, when I used to work for the Pru many years ago, you know, we were looking at pandemic assumptions of anywhere between 30 and 70% staff not being available through illness and caring responsibilities. I think most organisations through COVID have actually, you know, seen a improvement in absence, because people haven't been taking holidays. People haven't, fortunately, not many have caught COVID and been unable to work. But as I say, it's almost a reverse risk, is that when we do start to come out of this, everybody's going to want to take that annual leave that they haven't taken to date. And, you know, businesses are going to have to juggle with people all putting in leave requests at the same time and still being able to fulfill, you know, operational requirements and look after the customers. So I think, you know, that risk is facing every business and, you know, should be being addressed now, because, you know, a lot of organisations have let people carry over holidays to this year. But as I say, if people all want to take them all at one time, we're going to be in a very difficult situation.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if anyone else, we touched on this, Andy, but obviously one of the things that COVID has showed us is how the reliance on IT has gone full circle, where at one time back in the day, it was all about ITDR, and BC wasn't really a term that was used. And then BC came to the fore and became the latest sexy thing. And now that COVID has led to a lot more reliance on technology, it's almost as if ITDR is coming back round again as the prevalent thing that people need to be aware of. I'm not saying the other stuff that we do in BC doesn't matter. But one thing I was saying to Andy is I feel very conscious that, having worked in IT a long time ago, I need to brush up on my IT skills so that I can have an intelligent conversation with IT people. And I don't mean in any deeply technical way. I just mean in an awareness kind of way. And also, I feel that I don't know enough about information security to be able to have the right conversations. And I think that's the next big thing that could hit us, and it is a cyber attack. And God forbid, I hope it doesn't, you know, if they attack one of the big cloud providers like AWS or Azure or Google or whatever. But I do feel personally I need to brush up my skills in things like information security and IT. And I don't know if anyone else feels that as well.
Yeah, well, the conversation was fairly recent, wasn't it, Julian? And we're talking about having almost gone full circle with IT, and therefore needing to, because we spent years, haven't we, saying business continuity is not just about IT. And it's kind of the IT element is massive again. And that article that you pointed me at last week, actually, wasn't it, about the resurgence of tape backups?
Yeah.
As a protective measure against cyber attack. That's quite amazing, really. That, you know, the use of tape is coming back, because it's really the only way that you can guarantee a separate backup that's not online anymore. So, okay, it might be infected previously, but hopefully you've got a clean backup. But it's not online, so it's not subject in the same way to an attack that hits your primary systems and then gets across the network into your backup systems. So I thought that was a really interesting article. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out over the next months and years. Hello, Nigel. Have you been lurking in the background the whole time?
Yeah. Yeah, only about 20 years, mate. So I thought the book was excellent, by the way, the draft copy that I read.
Yeah, thank you very much for it.
I've just ordered it again, so there you go.
You're right.
Order number 294. So you should get onto the case now. But, yeah.
Yeah, I've left something in chat for you, but I'm going to have to go. So.
Okay, thank you, Sue.
I'll leave it with you.
Thanks, Sue.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave a message and let me know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to business continuity, disaster management, COVID, personal well-being, anything that's relatable to those subjects, you can reach me through my LinkedIn profile, which is in the video description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.